especially in this specific time in the industry, try to shape how we build video games for the next 5 years, 10 years, and be present with, developers that are struggling on specific things, bringing them that type of expertise. I am very proud of being a craftsman, not necessarily an artist.
Yeah.
I like to craft. And for me, crafting is, being humble, arriving and listening and working that muscle. We didn't take the time to understand what was the nature of that franchise, what was the nature of the audience, what was the expectation of the first party publisher.
Yeah.
But you need to make a space for people to exchange. It cannot be only sending text in Slack. And that's an ongoing process.
Jules, welcome to the Creative Collaboration Podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, since it's Gamescom and we're all pressed for time, we'll jump right in.
Sure.
So can you tell us how you got into the industry and how that led to where you are today?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Started in the industry on Super Famicom or like the Nintendo 16 bits, doing sprites just because I came from the demo scene back in the days on the Commodore 64. And that was just fun. It's that fun to edit pixels. And it's kind of never left me. I actually tried to do like serious jobs. So they say my parents, and then ended up, doing virally, doing pixels, vectors, and always kind of like the technical side and the artistic side, and kind of, made my way through that since then.
Cool. And where are you now?
Now I am at Roommate. It's when you look back and to give you like the 5-minute kind of not what I did but why I did it, which is probably more interesting. It's I left France and I went to Canada, and then as I said, I had to like change my name a little bit and try to understand how people would like talk about the same thing, but just in different ways, right? There's a way to speak about video game when you're in France, and there's a way to speak about video game when you're in Canada or in the US. And when you use one to talk about to the other audience, you end up in kind of a no man's land of misunderstanding. So that was super interesting. And then moving from there, I kind of expanded realms of interest, which is like, all right, how do you do pixel? How do you do pixel in engine? How do you make an engine? How do you get people to work across creativity from art to tech to game design, and then how to make studios? And that became kind of one of my thing, which is like I started making studios in various places and doing the creative aspect, but also doing the multicultural aspect. A French guy making a video game studio in Vancouver, Canada, with other people, and then I went to Singapore to build a very French, Assassin's Creed with Singaporean. I think we had 16 nationalities in the studio, which was super interesting.
Yeah.
Getting all those people kind of to work together, right? And then I did a very American game, Call of Duty in China. And then I did a very Chinese game in Berlin. And then I built my own studio again, this time in Taiwan. Working for a very Japanese company, Capcom and Konami. We just released Silent Hill F, that studio, that very, Taiwanese studio working with fantastic partners in Japan. So that became my trademark. And that's exactly what I do at Roommate, which is trying to connect people from multiple trades and multiple culture, and trying to put them together and connecting them with developers in the West Coast, in Europe, in Asia, and building something that, could be the fabric of a multinational game industry. That's
the mix. I mean, that's your job. That's
the band with him.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So how would you describe your own role in the sort of creative process of making a game?
That's very interesting. When you have people that are like very good at what they do, like that's what the game industry is, right? People that are laser focused on their trade and know that thing, right? And they tend to build their world, their understanding of the world, their understanding of the game, through those specific lens, right? I think it's Malcolm Gladwell that said like, to a worm in a horseradish, the world is horseradish, right? It's like, it is basically, that's what they see, right? And each of those very important people, artists, programmers, game designers, and execs as well, and people with the finance, which is a very important part, tend to have their own lexicon and their own vocabulary. My job is to establish a lexicon or a way for those people to exchange around ideas, which is a common ground, which is usually the product. So when a product is being talked about, what I see my job at Roommate is to create an environment that enables those people to speak about the product using language that each of them can relate to their own dream.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the meta aspect, and that does not involve Excel sheets and this kind of stuff, but definitely that's that.
Super interesting. I think maybe you should be the host of this podcast. It's like, I think that's what I'm not trying to answer. Yeah, let's sort of try to dig into and have interesting conversations around, like, how do we make these people like gel, understand each other, work together? Yeah, because sometimes inherently very different. Right?
Super different, but that's where the beauty, right? And I think, when I started doing demo, there's always a kind of like magic moment when a programmer starts despising the artist or stops despising the artist. That's before, then after. Yeah. And then there's the haha moment, the world famous haha moment. Wait, I could do that to enable you now that I understood what's your angle, what is it you are after, right?
Yeah.
And I think in any meetings, on any, and that tends to disappear, in experienced team, because I guess either through scars or battle fought together, they added the level of trust increase, and then they started building their own vocabulary. And that's what makes the experienced team.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a term in Japanese called ba, which is like essentially, the forum, the common ground, where we can all,
where we can exchange and kind of bring our own thing and try to get it somewhere else. And that's super cool. I mean, like, that's why I got in industry was, I guess I didn't know that moment existed, but what keeps me in the industry is that moment. And when you add a layer, which is very close to my heart, which is multicultural or clash of culture, because games are made through the world now. They are made for the world, right? And it's always difficult to see a very Chinese game fail to find its audience because it failed to grasp the codes that will be relevant, and vice versa, right? It's always beautiful to create a place where you remove that friction and you enable the pure creativity to actually come through.
Yeah. So, do you remember the first time where collaboration played a major role in creating something?
Yeah. I don't know if it,
or just
I don't know it's the first time. It's when I was doing Sleeping Dogs with my own company, United Fun Games in Vancouver, with some fantastic people. And I think there was, Red Dead Redemption that got out, and we were all fascinated by emergent gameplays. That's like throwing a torchlight onto a bowl of egg would create a fire that would create something else, right? Yeah. And then we are like, aha, let's put a bunch of people together to create a magic moment that would be an emergent gameplay in an open world game.
Yeah.
And so that rippled to a bunch of other scenes, but that was really like one of those moments that you remember where you're like, and I think we ended up putting balloon into some kind of ball where everybody got shot. But anyway, it was fun. And then we killed the physics engine. But technical artists, art director, narrative designers, kind of jamming together, like creative jam.
Yeah.
And that was always is one of the highlights. There's been many.
Yeah. And what made that work? Was that a process, or did you build the culture?
That was the magic, all right? That was people like hanging out under a massive amount of caffeine together for a long time. We did a similar moment in Singapore for Ubisoft, for Assassin's Creed 3. And that was process. So the mandate for Assassin's Creed 3, we were in Singapore at Fantastic Tech, which was the naval and the boat sim that they have created. But they did not at the time had owned a slice of the game. They had done levels, they had done mission, but not an entire slice of the game. And we were, E3 was coming. E3 at the time was still a thing, and E3 was coming. And usually at E3, AC is always represented by the main studio, Montreal, because that's they own the franchise and the lore of Assassin. And we were asked to do a demo, to show the naval demo, right? So I took a page from the Pixar book about creativity, and we felt that what this team lacked is that cohesive vision, that like, let's share something and let's build a vocabulary. Right? We boarded the entire room with storyboard of what we thought was the mission. And that was a collaborative process, of course, right? So we had the sound designer, the level designer, the lead programmer, and the artist, like all kind of at the beginning very shy, like, oh, maybe, and then starting to post it and to say, oh, this is where, we think the peak of the mission should be, like there should be a beat here, and then there should be a release, and then everybody started, second meeting, third meeting every morning. We would say like, okay, what did we do? Let's refine that vision. Let's bring in the color palette. Let's bring in the sound, and little by little, we kind of built a vocabulary to talk about that mission, right? And to somehow shape how each of the team could contribute to building that experience. And for the little story, that was the mission that ended up showing at E3. And it was fantastic to see the look of, wonder and proudness that the team that has been the B or C team suddenly being shown and showing like what they have created together, being on a bigger show floor. And it was but that was process.
Very cool. So, all right. So what does creative collaboration mean to you, like personally?
Tricky question. Yeah, super tricky question is like, whoa. Beyond, of course, being the thing that drives my last 35 years of career, So I was fortunate enough to do the pre-production of Silent Hill F, right? Which again was different culture meeting other culture, and it was so great to because you always, especially as a creator, right? And I think that there are a lot of people that are proud of their art, and that you are always afraid, and that's definitely true for artists. You are always afraid to share. That I saw that when I was teaching at the art school. It's like my students I can't show it, right? And that there is a fear of like, but a video game is not a personal journey. It is a product that is made for an audience. And in that aspect, an audience is by nature multimodal, right? And they will react to culture, sound, eyes. So you need to build that universe, and you need other people to build that universe. So creative collaboration is, for me, a way to reach the heart of an audience and understand the multiple aspects of that.
Yeah.
It's also a very meta answer to your perimeter question.
Yeah. Good way. No, but I think that is the theme of the podcast. Just like so many different people from different cultures, maybe like departments traditionally having issues working together. It could be engineering versus that, or art versus whatever, right?
But they think that their thing is the most important thing. In the French video game business, historically, it's like it's all about art. The brain is not important, and fair enough. And it's super. That's what that's been I'm trying to do with roommate, and trying to convince people throughout the world that by working with teams across the world that might bring their own stone to the thing, their game will be made better, right? And they will be made like bit better as developer because they will understand a different side of creativity. People are afraid of working, Roommate is a co-development studio. We are here to help, and we are here to, especially in this specific time in the industry, try to shape how we build video games for the next 5 years, 10 years, and be present with, developers that are struggling on specific things, bringing them that type of expertise that we might have seen left, right, and center in various places, right? But the first step is like, let's remove the friction, remove the fear, and say, let's try to find a vocabulary that we are going to build together to talk about your product for your audience. And that's an ongoing process.
Right? Yeah. So you mentioned vocabulary a bunch of times. Do you literally do that? Make a word list, so to speak?
If there's a word list, there's a color, what that color means in our game, what does compression means in this game, what are the feelings we want to create. There's a word list, there is a feeling list as well. Like, what is the output feeling? People, when you do the pre-production, you have the creative pillars, right? But that's usually more for a marketing point of view to explain the substantial part of a game, right? But from a creative point of view, what we try to understand, because that's the thing, right? You arrive onto a game where people have already spun their stuff. Usually they start on a small team and they create tribal knowledge, right? And usually it's not even written on the wall. It's just like stuff that they had around the coffee machine, right? And we need to systematically extract that tribal knowledge and quote unquote weaponize it so that we can explain it to other people in other language, right? So it comes with image, it comes with vocabulary, like what are the key terms and what do they mean for that specific team, and it's usually different. What are the feelings that they want to create? Why do they want to create those feelings for this specific audience? And and it's not about assets or stuff. It's like, what is the target audience and what do they want to create? What does that feature want to generate as a feeling for the audience?
Yeah. Right. And do you think, like, being a good collaborator, is that something people are like born with?
No.
Or do you learn over time?
Being a good creator and a collaborator might be just like the yeah, I think you need to arrive, and that definitely is something that I got from my Asian 10 years, is you need to arrive with like being super humble. I think but that's my personal belief, right? People have different stuff. I'm very proud of being a craftsman, not necessarily an artist.
Yeah.
I like to craft, and for me, crafting is, being humble, arriving and listening and working that muscle, not going, I think that when people want to sell an idea, I am very like in admiration of those people that like can go through a wall and like, this is their vision. What I like to do is kind of make a space for the other person to kind of bring in their stuff and make them feel welcomed, and that's yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's a balance between like strong individual, like creative, if you will, and team alignment.
Yeah, I think there is. Like, I've seen people arrive with a strong creative vision, like being art or being gameplay, but I would probably make the argument that at the end, the product was successful because they were able to convince other people and let some other people bring their stone to their building.
Yeah.
Right. But I need to substantiate that assessment.
Yeah. At what point in a game project do you think you should like allow the commercial voices to be heard? Can be marketing, to be.
You know what? The commercial voices that I'm going to be thrown out of the building at the pre-production stage. Like, you make a game for an audience.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying when like the finance side of it is an immensely important part of the process, the creative process, because you don't build an art piece for you that you will be the only one. It's a commercial product. and you need to understand what resonates with the audience and what's important for them and in what ecosystem you're going to exist to accurately answer the question, right? And so the finance part or the marketing part needs to be at a very early stage, but to some extent, as any kind of creative process, should not be the only voice. It's always a balance. You need to educate and bring, your angle to them, as well as they should absolutely contribute to helping you define what is it you are looking for. Yeah.
So you got to understand each other's
Absolutely.
point of view.
Absolutely. And as so many times you have the artist like, oh yes, I don't want to make blue. Fair enough. Or I don't want HUD on my screen.
Nobody wants HUD.
And nobody wants HUD, but it's useful.
Every game ends up with more HUD than someone wanted.
Is that expected?
Yeah. Can you remember an example of when that either worked or did not work on a project that you're talking about?
Well, so it didn't work is, that was one of our falling when we were at a studio. Let's call it a studio. And it was one of mine, so I had part of the responsibility there. And a publisher came in and say, we need you to give us your spin on that franchise. Right? And as a studio, we came out with ego and we said, well, the franchise, we shall, we didn't respect and embrace the lore of a franchise that had met the love of a large audience, and we proposed our own spin on it. And to some extent, we didn't understand why it got rejected. But looking back, after a few years, it was like, yes, of course, because we did not understand we didn't take the time to understand what was the nature of that franchise, what was the nature of the audience, what was the expectation of the first party publisher.
Yeah, why people watch it?
Why people, yeah, we kind of like say, no, this is, we're going to do better, right?
Yeah.
Not successful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that didn't work. Is there a moment where it worked? Yeah, it worked on Most Wanted. I think Most Wanted, the first one, we had a fantastic visionary art director, fantastic programmer, Habib Zadepour, a fantastic programmer, Pete Deutsch, and then we brought that together, and then we had a real reflection with EA, on the back of Underground 1 and 2, and like, okay, where do we want to bring driving, and how does Need for Speed, that finally found success again with Underground could become better and bigger, and that big push towards the driving culture at the time. And it was a fantastic time at EA. I still remember it with love. We had Clenentis as the chief visual officer, Henry Lapunta, like fantastic people from when EA was trying to bring the movie business to video game, and suddenly the hardware was allowing us to kind of have better fidelity, right? And that maelstrom of visionary people actually ended up working together very, very well and pushed out what resonated very much with the audience. I think Most Wanted, in terms of the Need for Speed legacy, was, I think, Underground 1 was definitely a milestone, but Most Wanted was definitely like probably where it jet.
Yeah, cool. I mean, we sort of touched, but are there any like rituals, routines, tools that you...
Creativity Inc. Read the book. Definitely. Creativity Inc. is a haha moment that gives a lot of those like nuggets of what is okay, what is not okay, how to open and when to close down. I think I don't think that anybody can say that Pixar is not one of the most creative whoever, and because they play with pixel as well, I think it's a good source of knowledge.
Yeah. And today, are you guys remote or in office?
That is an extra. We have offices, of course, because of the nature of Roommate and where he's coming from, Ukraine, and the event that happened. The company had to kind of like literally adapt to a very difficult situation, and we had people that are in 46 countries currently. We have now embraced the international nature of it, which was a very transformative moment for the company. And we are very, very remote. And keeping the creativity, keeping the willingness to exchange, to the creating and building a vision together through remote stuff is a whole bunch of interesting proprietary knowledge that I will not share.
Yeah. No, you don't have to do that, but it would be interesting to. A lot of the times you hear that the creative process, people need to be in the same room essentially.
Yeah, alors I think that's one of those, it definitely helps. The same way having a team that has gone through, battles together helps. It is a shortcut. It does help. I was talking to a guy actually in France that is building a castle, well, that not building, but that has a castle
Yeah.
where he wants to put a bunch of creative things together during the inception of games to create that, that magic. And so I think it's a great idea, an interesting idea. But in our world of remote, I think there's ways to leverage, but you need to make a space for people to exchange. It cannot be only sending text in Slack. You need to have the virtual coffee break moment where people kind of like shoot shit and say what if, and that's not,
No, these like
it's not measure, right?
all right, cool. I mean, I know it's Gamescom and we're all running in different directions, but who would you like to see on the podcast? If you could pick a name.
Glenn Entis.
Glenn Entis.
100% a creative Pacific Data Image, chief creative officer of EA at the time where it was that moment. I think he had this keynote at COF on creativity that I think it was San Diego, if I remember well. Fantastic visionary and like spades of knowledge to share.
Awesome. And where can people find more information about you or the company?
LinkedIn, and I'm trying more and more to sounds like a little bit like an old boomer problem, like I want people to realize no, but I'm trying, it's because I like to reflect, and because I've been in like 12 different countries in my career, it's nice to collide idea. I've always liked to do that. My roommate is a fantastic place to collide ideas, and people are very frank about, this is what we should do and this is what we should not. So I'm trying to organize those thoughts, especially in the industry right now with the arrival of AI and UGC. Like all those are interesting. And as I said, we are very much trying to understand what the industry is doing and how we can help shape it, and provide support to where we are going, where Microsoft is going, where Sony is going, and so LinkedIn is probably my best forum to read some of my thoughts and also participate and bring your stuff, because obviously I don't have all the deals.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll put a link in the show.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming.